Half lit and half shadowed, A Gripping Tale by VMS. It is about Alia and Shiva. The campus queen and the charmer, the college lawns shimmered under the late afternoon sun. Groups of students sprawled across the grass, some buried in books, others laughing at jokes that only belonged to the age, half innocent, half reckless. Among them, one face always stood out, Alia. With her long, dark hair, flawless skin, and the kind of poise that came only from being raised in luxury, she was the queen of the campus without ever trying. Professors praised her for her sharp answers, classmates admired her sense of style. Wherever she went, a hush followed as though she carried her own spotlight. But Alia barely noticed she was under the attention. For her, charm was as natural as breathing. It was one such day while leaving the library with an armful of books, and she first crossed paths with Shiva. He was leaning casually against his motorbike at the college gate, his shirt unbuttoned just enough to draw whispers from girls passing by. His smile carried mischief, the kind of smile that could win 100 battles before a word was spoken. Unlike Alia, Shiva had never been the studious type. He was bold, loud, lived as though the world owed him its applause. Need help with those? Shiva asked, stepping forward as her books slipped slightly in her hands, and Alia shot him a look, cool and dismissive. I can manage. Of course you can, Shiva replied unbothered, but I would rather not watch knowledge scatter on the ground. The corners of her lips twitched despite herself by the witty answer. A few dared to joke with her so freely for the moment something shifted. Shiva began appearing more often in her line of sight, holding doors open, joining her study group, though he never studied, sitting under the same banyan tree during breaks. His confidence was disarming, his persistence playful rather than suffocating, and slowly Alia found herself smiling more, laughing more, and whenever Shiva was around. Her friends teased her, whispering about the new campus couple. She dismissed them at first, but late at night, when her phone lit up with messages, she didn't ignore it. Theirs was not love at first sight, but a spark waiting to turn into something far more dangerous. And neither of them knew in that golden season of youth that what began as a harmless infatuation would one day turn or burn their lives to ashes. From crush to obsession, the next chapter, the spark between Alia and Shiva soon grew into a flame that refused to be hidden. At first, it was simple things, a stolen glance across the classroom, and notes slipped into her book. With a silly doodle waiting for each other outside the lecture, all Alia felt alive in ways she had before, but carefully sheltered world was filled with excitement. Shiva, on the other hand, was intoxicated. Alia wasn't just another girl. She was the girl, beautiful, elegant, unreachable to most. Winning her affection became more than love. It became a conquest. Their evenings stretched into long drives on Shiva's motorbike. The wind whipping through Alia's hair as she clung to him, half scared, half exhilarated. They lingered at cafes and whispering promises forever. Their phones buzzed late into the night with messages, sweetly desperate, until sleep finally claimed them. Beneath the romance, a darker current flowed. Shiva's affection was fierce, almost consuming. He wanted her attention all the time when Alia laughed at a classmate joke. Shiva's jaw tightened when she missed one of his calls. His questions came sharp. Where were you? And who were you with? Why didn't you answer? At first, Alia found his possessiveness flattering. It felt like passion, like proof of how much he mattered. But slowly it began to weigh on her. Her friends noticed too. Alia, one of them, whispered during lunch, he is everywhere, don't you feel suffocated? Alia only smiled, brushing it off. You just cast too much. It is not a bad thing. But late at night, when Shiva grew angry over small things, when his voice cracked with fear of losing her, Alia sometimes wondered if love was supposed to feel this heavy. Their grades began to slip, assignments delayed, lectures skipped, all for the sake of stolen hours together. Professors frowned, parents grew suspicious, but Alia and Shiva were too lost in each other to notice. And the next chapter whirled against them. It was only a matter of time. Both whispers turned into storms. Alia's parents, proud industrialists who had raised their daughter in comfort and dignity, began noticing the changes. Their once diligent daughter now skipped classes, came home late, and brushed aside questions with vague answers. Her father's stern yet loving warned her gently at first. Alia, he said one evening at the dinner table, I see distraction in your eyes. Studies are your future. Don't waste your time in passing amusements. Alia lowered her gaze, a spoon clinging softly against the plate, and she wanted to speak, wanted to tell him about Shiva, about how alive he made her feel. But she knew her father's world had no space for boys who weren't equal in wealth or status. But the truth could not stay hidden. One afternoon, as Alia returned from the ride with Shiva, her uncle spotted them near the old cinema hall. By evening, the entire household knew. Her mother's eyes brimmed with disappointment. Father's voice thundered across the walls. And Shiva, that boy he spat, he is nothing but a drifter. No education, no ambition, no future. And you, our only daughter, willing to throw everything away for him. Alia's tears flowed, but she stood firm. I love him, Papa. You don't know how much he too loved me. Her father slammed his fist on the table. Love at this age is a fever, not truth. You will end this nonsense immediately or forget your parents. The verdict was final. Meanwhile, Shiva's own parents, though less affluent, were not kinder. His mother wept, fearing disgrace. Father scoffed, and rich girls don't marry boys like you. They play with you, then leave. Stop chasing illusions. But Shiva wasn't the kind to surrender. Rage and determination burned in him, and they will see that he told Alia in a hushed voice over the phone. If they try to separate us and we will go far away, I will take care of you, you will see. Alia's heart ached, torn between loyalty to her family and her burning love for Shiva. She felt the world closing it on her, but it was only the beginning of their downfall. For the first time, Alia realized that the love which had once felt like freedom was now chaining her against everyone she had ever known. The fate, cruel as ever, was about to test them in ways neither could imagine. The secret married the next chapter. When the world slammed its doors on them, Shiva Alia found another one that belonged only to the two of them. Nights of whispered phone calls turned into desperate plans, and they had no blessings, no money, no certainty, but they had love, or what they believed was love, fierce enough to conquer everything. Let's get married, Shiva said one evening, his voice trembling with equal parts fear and fire. And if we become husband and wife, no one can tear us apart. Alia hesitated. She was just 19, barely more than a girl raised in silks and soft luxuries. Marriage had always been painted for her a grand halls, golden jewelry, and blessings from hundreds of relatives. But with Shiva's hand gripping hers, the thought of standing against the world didn't frighten her, it thrilled her. So one monsoon morning, with only two college friends and witnesses, they stood in a dimly lit registrar's office. No flowers, no music, no ritual, just a signature on paper, trembling hands, and two rings bought from a roadside stall. It is not at all gold. And when the registrar finally declared them husband and wife, Shiva's eye gleamed with pride. Alia smiled through her tears. For a fleeting moment, it felt as if they had defeated everyone, but the reality outside the registrar's office was not a fairy tale. They entered a small, crumbling room in a city's back lanes. The paint peeled off the walls and ceiling leaked in the rains, and the mattress on the floor was only their furniture. Gone were Alia's silken curtains, polished floors. Gone was the comfort of 3 meals without thought. Yet for a while they laughed through it all. They cooked instant noodles together, drank tea in chipped cups, and dreamed of building a world where they needed no one but each other. In those nights, lying on the hard mattresses with the fan creaking above, Alia would whisper, "We will prove them wrong, won't we?" And Shiva, kissing her forehead, would answer always. But beneath their laughter, cracks always began to form. Shiva's temper, sharp and impatient, flat when money ran short. Alia's tears came more often, her body unaccustomed to hunger and hardship. The friends who once encouraged their rebellion soon drifted away, leaving silence in their place. They had chosen love over everything, but now love alone was being asked to carry the weight of survival, and that weight was heavier than either of them had ever imagined. right. And next chapter about the poverty and betrayal. Poverty has a way of stripping people away. For Alia and Shiva, days blurred into an endless cycle of unpaid rents, borrowed meals, arguments over money that never came. Shiva tried small jobs, delivering parcels and tutoring juniors, even working at a garage, but nothing lasted. His pride clashed with reality. Every failure deepened the cracks in their fragile marriage. And then came Rahul. Rahul had once been Shiva's college mate, wealthy, flamboyant, a kind who never walked into a room unnoticed. He drew the newest cars, wore designer shoes, and carried himself with the arrogance of someone who had never been denied anything. When he learned of Shiva's secret marriage, he laughed, clapped his old friend on the back, and said, "So the rebel got his princess after all." But his eyes lingered too long on Alia. Unlike others, Rahul did not mock their poverty. Instead, he extended invitations, dinners at fancy restaurants, expensive gifts, a helping hand. Whenever the couple stumbled, and what offerings for, he would say, flashing that disarming smile. Shiva, brushed by failure, accepted the help reluctantly. Alia, grateful for the brief escape from their misery, softened toward Rahul's presence, and soon this kindness revealed its age. Rahul knew how to flatter. He knew when to compliment Alia's beauty, when to call her too refined for such hardships, when to offer his arm just as Shiva turned away in anger. He never crossed the line at first. Instead, he danced around it, feeding her with attention she had once received from Shiva, but now missed desperately. One night after Shiva's angry outburst, Alia found herself sitting alone in Rahul's car outside their dingy apartment. "You deserve better," Raghav murmured, his hand brushing hers. "You were born for more than this. Look at you, still so beautiful, full of life, and why bury yourself in poverty with a man who cannot give you the world?" Alia's heart pounded. She wanted to pull her hand away, wanted to scream, but the words stuck in her throat. Raghul's voice was like silk, and in that moment of weakness, his presence felt dangerously comforting. And it wasn't love, it wasn't even desire, it was escape. But escape, when wrapped in charm and temptation, is the most dangerous betrayal of all. And Alia, standing on the edge of the choice, and could shatter everything she and Shiva had built, fragile though it was. And the next chapter, the forbidden affair, the line between loyalty and betrayal is rarely crossed in a single step, and more often it is eroded grain by grain, moment by moment, until one day nothing remains to hold it firm. For Alia, the erosion began quietly. Rahul's presence became frequent. At first, it was innocent, a lift to the market, a visit when Shiva was away, a meal paid for when money was scarce, but this charm was deliberate, his words carefully chosen. He reminded her of a girl she used to be, the elegant, carefree Alia of silks and smiles, and not the tired wife in a leaking apartment. Shiva noticed his pride bristle every time Rahul's car pulled out outside their door. "Why do you let him linger?" Shiva snapped one evening. "He looks at you like he is your friend." Alia shot back, anger flaring with her guilt. "At least he doesn't make me feel like a burden." The silence that followed was heavier than any fight. Rahul knew how to slip into those silences. He became Alia's listener, her confidant. "And you are too young to suffer like this," he told her one night as they sat in his car, city lights flickering outside. "Happiness is not a sin, Alia. Don't you deserve it?" And when her eyes welled with tears, his hand found hers. Not by accident this time, but with intent. It did not happen at all once. It was glances held too long, hands that didn't pull away, conversations that grew too intimate. One night, when rain battered the windows, her marriage felt like nothing but broken promises. Alia gave in. The affair was not love, it was hunger for comfort, for escape, for a version of herself she thought she had lost. But every stolen hour with Rahul left her emptier than before, and yet she couldn't stop. Guilt gnawed at her, but so did a strange intoxication. She lived in two worlds now, one of duty with Shiva and one of forbidden fire with Rahul. But secrets have a way of surfacing, and Shiva was not blind. He saw the changes, the distant eyes, excuses, sudden absences, suspicion hardened in him like stone. He did not yet have proof, but in his heart he knew it already. And yet truth would finally come crashing down. It would not just shatter their marriage, it would shatter their very souls. The shattered through the next chapter. It was late evening when Shiva returned home earlier than usual. Apartment was dim, fan groaning above, and but Alia wasn't there. Her dupatta was missing from the hook by the door, and on the table lay a half-eaten plate of food, cold now as if abandoned in haste. Something inside Shiva bent still. He didn't rush, did not storm. Instead, he sat down in the chair, staring at the flickering tube light above. Minutes passed, hours maybe, and when the sound of the car finally stopped outside, he knew. Through the cracked window, he saw Alia stepped out of Rahul's car. Her hair was loose, her lips pressed tight, her eyes avoiding the world, and Rahul leaned toward her, whispering something before driving away with a smirk that Shiva caught even in the shadows. Shiva didn't speak when she entered. Alia froze at the sight of him. "You are home early, Alia," and faltered. She tried to walk past him, but she was eyes still hollow, heavy, held her in place. "Where were you?" he said softly, too softly. Her throat closed, words would not come. Lies rose, but guilt choked them down. He didn't shout, he didn't accuse. He simply looked at her as though seeing her for the first time, and in that silence, Alia felt he would, her world collapse. When at last he stood, his voice was low, steady, yet each word stuck like a blade. "I fought the world for you, Alia, and I turned back onto your parents, on my future, on everything I had. All I wanted was us. Was that too small for you?" Her tears spilled over, but Shiva didn't wait for her answer. He walked to the door, passed, and said without turning back, "And you have killed something tonight, not me, not even us. Just the fate that held us together, and without that, and what are we?" The door clicked shut behind him. Alia sank to the floor, sobbing into her hands. The weight of her choices pressed down until she could barely breathe. For the first time, she wished death would take her, anything to escape the shame. But that night was far from done, because when dawn came, Shiva returned. He found Alia not weeping but broken, her wrist bruised, a bottle of sleeping pills spilled across the floor. So she had tried to end it all. And in that moment of all of Shiva's anger melted into terror, rushed her to the hospital, her awake, screaming her name, love, betrayal, guilt, rage. It all dissolved into one truth. He could not let her go, not like this, not ever. And the next chapter, a new leaf in ashes. The hospital smell, the harsh fluorescent lights, scattered pills. They all blurred into nothing when Shiva held Alia's trembling hands. Her eyes were wide, haunted, searching for forgiveness she feared she did not deserve. I was going to, she choked, tears spilling again. And Shiva cut her off, pressing a gentle finger on her lips. "No, none of them matters now. You are here. That is all I need." For the first time in months, Alia felt the warmth of safety, not the kind bought with money or privilege, but the kind that comes from someone refusing to give up on you even after everything. They did not speak of Rahul, not it. That found it remained a scar to remind them of betrayal, desire, and weakness, but they clung to each other anyway. And the next months were a new beginning, small and difficult. Shiva took up night shifts at the local clinic. Alia began assisting at a charity hospital. Their apartment remained modest, peeling paint, leaking taps, no luxuries. But every corner echoed with laughter they hadn't heard in years. They learned to survive together, not as infatuated teenagers, reckless rebels, and now little matured, understanding each other's emotion and respecting the love between them. Love could sustain and be intact, even in poverty, and if it is true, money cannot buy the love. That kind of love they started to live. And for the first time in months, Alia felt the warmth of safety, not the kind of money or privilege. And the next month, a new beginning being small and difficult, Shiva took up night shifts, and they both learned to survive together, more like independent souls, matured souls. Shiva kissed her temple. We already are not rich, not perfect, but we are together, and for now that is enough. For the first time in her life, Alia believed him. She had lost much privilege, trust, innocence, but she had almost found something rare. A love tempered by fire, patient, forgiving, and enduring. As the city lights flickered below, she realized that happiness was not in wealth or passion or perfect choices. It was in survival, forgiveness, and walking side by side, even when the world has tried to tear them apart. It is more like a light that is a half lit and a half shadowed. It has got dualities and extremes, but need to make the better choices in order to be happy. Alia and Shiva would never be the same as before, but perhaps they were better, because after ruin comes rebirth and after fire comes warmth. Together they had found both.